Welcome to Murali End. My name's Mark Machado. I'm joined by my cousin Dominic Machado. I am on the beach. I'll explain why very shortly. We are talking about the day 3 of Sri Lanka's second test against Bangladesh. It's a 2-test series. The first test was a draw at Gaul. The second test is in Colombo. The first couple of days went very well for Sri Lanka, all in all. And the third day, Dom, I think I can relax a bit. I can put my feet up, hence why I've come down to stick my feet in some sand. Sri Lanka were all out for 458, and Bangladesh finished the day 115 for 6. Which means that currently Sri Lanka have a lead of 96 runs. The last ball of the day's play today was a wicket, which is worth mentioning because I kind of felt, I don't know how you feel about this, we'll come to it in a minute, how I kind of felt if there was 5 more overs, this game could be wrapped up tonight. If you're watching or listening, if you're listening, thank you for listening. If you're watching, I should tell you about the podcast. Murali End is available as a podcast. So if you're only able to watch 5 or 6 minutes of this on YouTube, the audio will be available hopefully about an hour after, maybe even less after the record. If you're watching, you can send us your comments and your thoughts and your questions on anything. If you want to ask me what I wear to the beach, I'm happy to answer that. We can take non-cricket questions today, Dominic, because obviously
we're on the beach.
Overconfident. If you want to talk about cricket, then obviously that's the main reason that we're here today. So bring those cricket questions in as well. Dom, what's your takeaway after today's play?
My big takeaway is plans. Sri Lanka looked like a team that actually had plans to win the game. From the way they came out and batted to the way they executed their bowling plans, it seemed like this was a team that was focused on getting the victory. They knew they had a really good opportunity starting the day at 280 for 2, and they just built on it, and they had intent to win. Every single batter who came out had intent to play shots and score runs. And the bowlers and the field setting, I have to say, DDS's captaincy, I thought was much better. Giving himself a bowl early in the day was a big move. We know that off spin to left-handers is really, really important. And he didn't want to chance Tharinder Ratnayaka's perhaps slightly looser form of leg spin to give free runs. So he went with himself, and it paid off richly. I thought every batter who came out there. So Pathum came out and he slashed a couple boundaries, even though it was a short stay at the crease for him today. And then Kamindu came out, was whacking the Bangladeshi fast bowlers around. And then the best innings of the day came from Kusal Mendis, who kind of showed that impetus, controlled the innings, batted well with the tail, and got 84 runs on the board that they desperately needed to take that lead over 200 and put Sri Lanka firmly in the driver's seat.
Sorry, I'm muting myself because I'm a baddie. Chamath has sent a question in. It's the first thing I want to talk about when you were going through your thoughts on the day. It's about Kusal Mendis' batting. Good to see they unleashed Kusal and asked to go after everyone from the go, even with wickets kept falling. I loved the way Kusal batted today. I loved the way we approached the day. I thought it was brilliant. It was great. However, I think we need to talk about the way Kusal got out, because there was just so obviously not a second run on there. I don't know why they decided to
it was Vishwa's call. So I saw some people barbecuing Kusal for that, but it was Vishwa's call, and he was the one who was hearing back for the second run. So instead of Kusal just standing at his end and letting Vishwa get barbecued, he went for that second run. He was a little hesitant, but it was you would have loved to see 100 from him there. But
yesterday we talked about how a number of players, including we were talking about how obviously yesterday was Pathum's day. Today could have been Kusal's day, right? And I think in the post-match press conference after day 2, Kusal had said that he was, that they want to bat for as long as possible, kind of implying, setting us up for a really big score. Look, don't misunderstand me. 458 is probably going to be enough to win this test without having to bat again, right? However, I still think there is a world where Sri Lanka could have got north of 500. There is a world where Kusal Mendis could have got a century today.
I think, though, that's less on Kusal because he's batting with Vishwa Fernando and Asita Fernando, right? He did most of his
Yeah.
damage with that lower order. So for me, if we're talking about that, I think maybe that's where it falls on Kamindu and DDS to stick about just a bit more.
What I want to talk about Kusal though is right. We've seen yesterday we were talking about how a number of our players have matured the last few years
Yeah.
quite considerably, and Kusal has talked about how after Durham he went and worked with a life coach and stuff like that, and his game has improved exponentially. However, I think he's getting out in kind of semi ludicrous ways slightly too often.
Yeah.
Um, I look. There'll be nobody who gets as cut off about him getting out as he does, right? I understand that. And I don't want to recompound it. However, you go back to the IPL final and you're like, oh, damn, man, he looked good. And then he steps in his own wicket, which is, in a way, the second most comical way to get timed out after being timed out. Then today, I know all these things are basically just different forms of bad luck. If there's any way, though, you can cut that out. You're like, Crystal's going to go from a very good player right now, somebody who IPL teams are looking at. People talk about as one of a good opening white ball bowler and a good batter and a good test batter. And he's going to elevate that a little bit more. Getting a century today would have done his rep quite a lot of work. Even if he ended up on, let's say, 93 not out, right? It would have done a lot for his rep. I'm picking at just around the edges, right? I'm looking at the top of the cake and I'm commenting on the icing because today overall the cake was very good, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I thought he batted brilliantly with the tail, the way he kind of farmed strike. And he's actually shown that capability since he's come in at that number 6, number 7 spot. Sri Lanka has a long tail, right? And being able to bat and reliably score runs with them is quite hard to do. And Kusal has done it really well. So just a stat, since Kusal moved to keeper last year, he's averaging 45.4 from 17 innings. He's striking at 68. He's giving us that kind of Gilchrist role from the 6-7 spot where he provides impetus to the innings. He drives it on. And he's even done a few rescue jobs where things looked a little bit sketchy and he was able to bring it in. So I think it's a really good place for him to bat. It seems like he's allowed to play his natural game. And this is what I've always thought about Kusal. The person who gets Kusal out the most is Kusal.
Yeah.
There are no bowlers in the world that he isn't capable of dominating on his day. We've seen him do it so many times. So as he matures, as he gets that mental game going, I think we're just going to see better and better things from him. And he's had to work hard, right? I think he came into international cricket thinking with all that talent in the world and, seeing no bowlers he really was fearful of, that he was just going to be able to dominate. But he's done that hard work, that hard mental work, I think, to make himself into a high quality player, one of those match winners who I think is going to take this team forward, right? Because that's what we need. We don't need someone to kind of sit there and score 45 from 160 balls. We needed someone to give us 84 from 87 today.
Absolutely. A few more thoughts coming in. I'll just go through them from the top. Super Clusters, Virgo. I think this might be the first time I've seen one of your comments, Super Clusters. So thanks for joining. Thanks for all being part of the party. Do you think Pramath back to his form today? What do you think, Dom? Definitely much better today than he has been the last kind of 3 innings we've seen him bowl, right?
Absolutely. I think obviously the pitch played a big role. The fact that there was some turn made him so much more dangerous. You could tell the Bangladeshi players weren't necessarily able to tell the difference between the arm ball and the ball that turned away. He had Shanto in all sorts throughout this match. He should have had him out like 2 or 3 times, to be honest. And that 2 wickets that he got was probably the leanest return he might get from bowling so well. So I'm happy to see it, happy to see him work well. And I'm happy to see DDS think about using his bowlers and how to unleash a varied and different bowling attack. So that to me was quite big.
There's been a question about DDS and his batting. Neelan's asked, thoughts on DDS batting bowled well, but felt like his last few innings since just Oz have been getting out lazy shots. Almost today, Dom, it feels like we had it was a full all-rounder today. He didn't need to bat well. I obviously would have liked to see him get into the runs, and I do worry that he hasn't been as consistent with the bat as he was pre-captaincy, though I haven't any data. That's just my gut feeling of it. But we mentioned this earlier. It felt like he was captaining in a lot more dynamic fashion, and his bowling was superb today.
Yeah, I thought his bowling was superb. I thought his captaincy was good. He didn't let the pressure off Bangladesh, and I think that was key. He didn't get put off by one or two big shots, kept on pushing. So props to him for keeping that up. On the captaincy point, so if you want numbers, Mark, so under Demuth, so the previous captaincy, it's a 4-year period. He played 28 matches. He averaged 47, scored 600s and 850s. In the 14 matches he's been captain, his average is 36 with 200s and 650s. Now, the downside to that is the 200s happened in his in the same test, and they were in his second test as captain. So if we exclude that, it drops from an average that's in the mid 30s to the sort of high 20s, low 30s. I haven't done the math on it, but that's the concerning point, is that his batting seems to have suffered. The other thing that I'll add to it is now he's taking that critical number 4 position, the position that Angelo held for so long, right? And we're going to need big runs. We're not going to need just 40s and 30s and getting out in cheap ways. We're going to need him to turn those into hundreds. So that's I am worried about DDS in the sense that I just want to see him make that mental leap. I'm not worried about technical things or that he's been found out as a batter. I just want him to see that application that we've seen him do, especially in the last couple World Test Championships, and apply it to his batting at number 4.
Yeah, I don't think it's behind him to be a good captain, to bowl himself appropriately and to get runs. I think that's the case. I also don't think that there's any sort of conversation about moving him on from captaincy. I know that I get the impression that some fans want that, but I'm not in that place right now. I think
who would you put in there even?
Exactly. And I think some of the problems that we are having wouldn't be changed by just changing the captain. I just don't think that's true. So go back to the comments. Hello has asked about Vishra. Vishra could have done what he did for KJP in 2019. Back in the days, Vishra used to anchor Kusals in tests, would be a nice headline. I mean, that 2019 innings, isn't it? That's incredible. It's great. It's great to reminisce about it. Thanks for reminding us all about it. Hello. But I do think it was just like a brainless run. And even though you could say Vishra, bats at 9 or whatever, whenever he comes in, I still think he should know. He's a professional cricketer. He's plays cricket for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought that was a bit stupid in kind of any level of cricket, let alone somebody who's been around international cricket for a while. So, yeah, it is what it is. I just think if there's any way we can get Kusal to cut it out, then that'd be great. Neil, one massive positive: we're getting runs from everyone in the batting order.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like we have matured mentally as a group, as have always had the talent. Yeah, I think that's a kind of fair comment to make. What do you think, Dom?
Yeah, and I don't even think it's necessarily runs as much as match-winning runs. The quality of the runs is very high. I think it's easy to say, oh, well, we got runs from Angelo, right? We got runs from Demuth. But the type of runs that Pathum has scored in the last 2 innings, the type of runs that Kamindu scored in the previous test match, the type of runs that Kusal and Chandi scored in this test match, or match-winning innings. They move the game ahead. They're quick-paced. They put Sri Lanka in a position to win the match. It's not just they're scoring runs to score runs, but they're scoring runs to win games. So for me, that's the big difference, is the maturity is considering how do we take an advantage that we have and push that advantage into a victory. And that to me has been the positive change that we've seen with this younger batting lineup. It seems like there's less fear about, oh, what happens if I get out? It's no, I'm going to play an innings that will win the game. Even Kamindu, right, his 33, which was a great supporting knock, there was no fear in it. He wasn't thinking, "Oh, my average will drop or it won't look as good." He went out there, he attacked the Bangladeshi fast bowlers and made the most of what he could.
I want to talk about Tarindu because I wonder. I'd just love to know what he's thinking right now in the hotel or wherever he is. Probably, hopefully, asleep, or trying to get to sleep. Maybe watching some TV or watching reels on Instagram or whatever, or maybe on YouTube. I'd love to know what he thought because I felt it was surprising how late on in the day they brought him on to bowl. If for no other reason that you just got to get through so many overs, right? It's Test cricket, and you could have used them to kind of mix them up a little bit. And also, he's brought in a little bit for his kind of batting prowess. He did kind of all right. He didn't disgrace himself.
Yep.
I wonder if he's thinking, right, we're going to finish this game tomorrow, or if it gets to the fifth day or whatever. When this game's over, he's had a 2-run spell in the team. Has he done enough to be in contention next time around? When we know that they're looking at other players, we know that there's no end of spin options. Has he done enough to retain his spot? I don't know. I would love to know what his thoughts are on it because I look at this 11 today that's been playing the last few days, and I think at least 8 or 9 of them are having really good games, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, this is a tricky question. I think you can't, it's his first two matches in international cricket, let alone Test cricket. And he was pretty good last match. I think the problem with him is that he tends to bowl a few loose deliveries. Now, if DDS is willing to bowl himself and you have someone like Sanal Danusha in the side who can give you overs of spin, then you can kind of use the Rindu as a weapon as opposed to someone who's going to give you 30, 35 overs an inning. And I think that's okay. Now, whether that's how the team is going to think, I'm frankly, not quite sure about it. I thought he looked okay batting. He hit one absolutely massive six. It would have been nice if he kind of stayed on. But I mean, again, seeing that from a number 9 is a really good thing. So I guess my thought is, if they're purely judging on performance, he's probably not done enough to stick in the team. But that being said, he's a debutant. He's clearly got talent. He's clearly done his thing on the domestic stage. I don't see the harm in persisting with him for 3 or 4 more games to see what he can give you.
I also think that our next Test series is so far away. 11 months is a huge amount of time in Sri Lankan cricket. That could be 3 or 4 coaches, 5 or 6 captains, a couple of administrations. Who knows what might happen in that 11 months' time? We might win a World Cup, might lose a World Cup, might host another World. We're surprise hosts for a Women's World Cup. They might surprise host us with another thing. Who knows? Let's get through some of these other questions because I also want to look at the ODI squad that came out a few hours ago as well. Dilith has asked thoughts on Pathum Nissanka's innings. We talked about this extensively yesterday. You mentioned it at the top of the show, Dom. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I was slightly disappointed he didn't get to 160 because I'd worked out. I think if he gets 160, my maths could be off on this. I think he'll end up with an average of 45 at the end of this game. That obviously depends on whether or not he has to bat a second time. If he has to bat a second time, then that might throw it all out. Coming into this match, if you want to know how good his innings was, coming into this game, he had an average of just over 40, and he should finish with an average of about 45. Of about 44. Again, that depends on whether or not he gets to bat another time, a second time or not. I imagine I've never talked to Pathum Nissanka about how much he cares about batting averages. I hope it's not as much as me, because if it is as much as me, you'll be thinking right? If we can somehow come back into bat with Bangladesh needing, so with Sri Lanka needing to get like say 10 or 15 runs, and he could get those 5 or 6 runs, he can get over that 45 hill, maybe. I don't know. Look, I just think he's been superb. I've said this for a long time. I think he's not technically our most gifted player in terms of he's not got all the shots that other players might have, but he's learned when to use them, how to use them. He's learned he's confident at this level. He's just got the perfect mentality for it. And the fact that we see constant improvement, and I could confidently sit here and tell you the Pathum Nissanka we see right now playing, who's 27, isn't the same Pathum Nissanka who we will see playing in 2 years' time, or when they're 30, or when they're 32. I can also pretty confidently say I think we aren't near kind of prime Pathum at the moment. I think we're probably about 2 or 3 years away from that. I don't know what your take on that is, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, usually Mark Uncle is the optimistic, pat you on the back uncle, but today he's calling out the Sri Lankan batters for not getting double hundreds and hundreds, and he's in full uncle mode. But no, I think you're totally right that the thing that's so impressive about Pathum is just his mentality towards scoring runs, his desire to score runs, and his desire to get better. Every series we see new shots, new approaches. He's always willing to try things out. And in a game where innovation is happening at a really rapid pace because of T20 cricket, he's managing to get himself ready and in order to actually play the type of innings he needs to win a game. So I feel really, really, really good about Pathum. I think the sky's the limit for him in anything that he does. But and of course there are things he still needs to work on. But I trust that he's taking note of that and he's working on that. Because the things that I've thought he's needed to work on, guess what? He's gone in and fixed it and made it better.
Let's rattle through a few of these because we've kind of covered them off. Dennis has asked what we thoughts on our new number 4, Pramath Jayasuriya's performance. We mentioned this earlier, Dom, much better today. I think the pitch is much more helpful for him. I also, we talked about how it felt like they'd thought a bit more about plans about how to get certain players out and how to work
absolutely
certain wickets out. So I think he was much better. He's not gonna. I think we've learned that Pramath needs some help from the pitch if possible, but also needs to be he needs to be a cog in the system. He's not the whole system. Yeah. It's not like Murali or Rangana where he's going to figure it out fully. That's fine. That's normal. The 2 players that I mentioned there to compare him to are exceptional GOAT level cricketers.
Yeah. And even Rangana needed help, right? Murali was a freak and could do those things on a concrete pitch, but
yeah. Absolutely. Hello is written. Tarindu gets wickets but goes over 4 per over. Kind of have mixed feelings about him being in the 11. I think that's the whole. Yeah, that's kind of why I brought it up, Dom, because I'm not sure how well he's sleeping at the moment.
Yeah.
To put it bluntly, what he should be thinking, what the psychology should be in his mind is, I have made it here. I've not made it just once. I've now made it twice. I'm in the shirt. Let's go out and show the world what I can do. He might come in tomorrow and pick up those last wickets all by himself, and then we'll be in dreamland. I'll be back on the beach. Yeah. Jason has asked, what about Lahiru Udara? Do you think he's done enough? What do you think, Dom? Do you think he's done enough? I'll just throw in this comment from Savina as well. Lahiru Udara really can't field, but he can bat. Yeah, I get that impression as well. I don't think he's let himself down. I don't think he's sealed the spot, though. I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's kind of the same as Thurinder. You can see why they're in the squad. You can see the talents that they bring, but there are certain things they haven't quite figured out yet, and that's okay. I think your first 2 matches in international cricket, that should be fine. I'd like to see some persistence, especially because I don't think it helps either this set of players or the players you bring in to chop and change the next time, because then those players who come in are thinking, if I don't perform in these 2 matches that I have, that's curtains for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just not fair to any player. So for me, I think the big thing is just Lahiru showed that he can bat. Let's give him a few more series, kind of earmark it. Tell him, right? You can tell him ahead of time and say, okay, we're going to give you 2 more series. And what we want from you is to score 100 or to, tell him what we would expect from him in order to actually make the team. And same thing with Thurindu, right? I believe the West Indies, and I think part of it too, especially with Thurindu, is when are we going to play our next home series? I think the next test series we play is in the Windies, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Where you might play 2 spinners, but also might not.
I think it depends where they're being played. Dom, look, I don't want to take up much more of your time. Yeah, there you go. Your son is trying to pull you away from the screen. Should we just have a quick couple of minutes looking at the ODI squad that's come out? I'll just run through it and you can give me your thoughts. For some reason, Ishan Malinga's name at the bottom there has got muddled, but I'll run through it. Obviously, Charles Lanka as captain, Nissanka, Avishka Fernando, Nishan Madushka, Kusal Mendis, Sadira Samvik Rama, Kamindu Mendis, Janath Lianagay, Dunath Walalagay, Winindu Hasaranga, Mahesh Deekshana, Jeffrey Vandasay, Milan Ratnaika, Dilshan Madushanka, Sita Fernando, and Ishan Malinga. Dom, you can't read that team list out and not get excited if you're a Sri Lanka fan. Look at that bowling, look at that batting. What we missing?
Who's missing, you said?
I said, what are we missing? Like, how does this team? I should say, I think the first match is on the 2nd of July, which is Wednesday. There's not a huge amount of those players that are involved in the test series at the moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, Milan Ratnaik has come in. I think this is his first ODI squad.
Yeah, and this is pending injury.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's pending injury. It's an exciting squad, though, right?
Yeah, I would say. So I'm kind of in 2 minds. So one thing that I learned from this squad is looking at it, I think we're going to get spinning wickets because we have Vanders, we have Hasaranga, we have Tikshana, and we have Wella, not including Charith and Kamindu as well, right? So we've got 4 spinners, and then we've got Dilshan Madushanka. Super excited to see him back in the team. He was brilliant in that A tour to the UAE. Great to see Ishan Malinga in the team. I don't know, Mark, do you know when the new rules for ODIs come in?
I have no idea.
Because they're going. There's 1 ball for the final, I think 20 overs. So I'd love to see Ishan Malinga bowling those Yorkers with some kind of reverse swing. I would have thought you give Asitha Fernando a break, especially given the depth and quality of our white bowling lineups. Maybe give someone like Dushmantha Chamira a chance to show that, he's fit and looks good. Again, I don't know who will make it. Milan Ratnaika, I think he could be a good ODI bowler, certainly a good defensive ODI bowler with good lines and lengths. Yet to see what he can do with the bat. Like, can he be a batting all-rounder at the one-day level? I haven't seen enough of his sort of limited overs batting to see if he can provide that impetus. The guy who I think misses out due to Milan is Chamindu Wickramasinghe. So I'm okay with that if he's going to be in the T20 squad, because I think that will do him good. Other guys I'm thinking about are.
Can I throw 2 names at you?
Yeah.
Matisha Patharada and Newin Thishra.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking about the 1 ball versus 2 ball thing, because Pathum with an older ball at the end of an innings is going to be nearly impossible to play. And I thought, like, in a series against Bangladesh, this could be a great time to trial him, to see what he can offer, to see how he can be used. That being said, if it's going to be spinning wickets, then I'm not sure about that. Nuwan Thishara, yeah, I mean, obviously he plays some List A cricket, but I don't think I've ever seen, he's never played for Sri Lanka. Could be an interesting player to see, again, right, with that older ball, you can imagine him causing a lot of damage. He obviously can get the ball to swing up front. Could be really troublesome with a Dilshan Madushanka, Nuwan Thishara pairing. The other guy, the one guy, yeah.
I was going to say, so there is a world where you could go into where Sri Lanka play an ODI game, and they bring in 4 seamers, and those are Patarana, Tishara, Chamira, and Benura Fernando. None of those 4 players are even in the squad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the 4 of them aren't fit enough to bowl 10 overs. And I just think all 4 of them have, Larry Kamara. I don't know how fit he is at the moment, but that's another player who's done bits. I'm not sure what the thing. I know there is thinking. I don't want to say there is no thinking this is a brainless squad. That's not true. But I would like to know what the thinking is around the selection of Asitha, Milan. Asitha and Milan, basically. Those are the 2 but only because I don't think Asitha is a top ODI bowler. I would like to be proved wrong by that. I want him to prove me wrong. Please do. And also, he's just come off playing 10 days of Test cricket.
Yeah, and he's played county cricket. There's no need to just pile miles on. The other thing that I'm thinking about is finding that lower middle order impetus. So is Jonathan Lianage going to continue at 6 and play that role where he kind of holds down the innings? He makes sure that it ticks along, or do we need someone else? The other question then becomes what does Kamindu do at number 4? How does he bat? Does he bring some of his T20 instincts into the one-day game and kind of provide some firepower?
Dom, should we wrap it up there today? Because I think your kids need you. We'll be back tomorrow. I assume there'll be a result, and I'm kind of hoping it's going to be done quite early. So I'm not going to set a time because I live in London. Dominic lives in New York. Oh, sorry, in the East Coast, not in New York. So it might be finished before you even go to bed, Dominic, if they have a good session early on.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
Could be. Right. We've been the Murali End. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow, tell all your friends. Thank you. See you all later. Bye.